Illinois in the last couple of years, for some time, but really has been engaged in a debate around juvenile justice in what I frame, and I'm not going to frame it for you here any differently than I frame it when I'm talking in the state legislature about what works, right? I think at the end of the day, and I find this when I'm up and down the state as the steward of a public safety agency, dealing with other law enforcement officials, dealing with state's attorneys, dealing with legislators, we all, from our respective positions, are trying to protect public safety. I really believe that. We all believe that that is what we're doing. And that's what we believe that we've been doing for a long time. And so much of what we're doing is having a dialogue in the state of Illinois, not about what's tough or soft, but about what really works. We are, as has been laid out before on this panel, really 15 years to 2 decades into a lot of research. We're in a better place to understand what is effective and what is not. And I think that's so critically important when what you're trying to achieve is public safety. I tell people all the time, I don't know if I care what you think or how you feel. If you can't posture to me and explain to me what works, it's of no value. And when somebody is coming to you to make a critical decision that they will be held accountable for, I think similarly, that is where the foundation of any decision or recommendation should be based, right? What works? So in the last year, we did a couple of things in Illinois that I think are really relevant for this conversation. It's not the only thing we've done in the state, but I'm going to focus there because we rolled back automatic transfers. So that is the types of offenses. We rolled up the age of automatic transfers so that just barely shy of 16-year-old Hanan would have not been cutting it quite so close in Illinois for the offense. We rolled up that age, and then we dialed down the types of offenses that were automatically transferred, right? This is with an incredible, really thoughtful Republican governor, a majority Democratic, but strongly supported through bipartisan support legislator, right? So everybody has been in this dialogue, has been really supportive. And I think it's important to understand how we're looking at it, what we're talking about there. I supported the work, and the reason I did was simply this. There is a lot more information now, and I'm not just going to tell you it exists, I'm going to tell you how to get it. The Pathways to Desistance is a study. Pull it down. When I testify before my legislators, I said, wouldn't it be great if some group of researchers funded by MacArthur Foundation, the National Institute of Justice, Department of Justice, OJJDP, federal good quality money that you guys appropriate every day, right, was actually funding some primers for policymakers on whether or not we've been doing it for a long time, right? We should know whether or not, is it effective? If the goal at the end of the day is public safety, and it always is, does it work? Guess what? I said this to them. Somebody did it. They wrote a primer on just this issue. And if you go to the Pathways to Desistance website, you can pull down that primer and sort of see just a conversation in that research about automatic transfers. And it talks about what the professor started out talking about, whether or not and when it's effective. And it's really clear that there are times when, for certain offenses, driving kids into the adult system actually drives up the likelihood of recidivism later in life, right? That we actually can drive up that risk of harm in the future. It also talks about a few instances where that incapacitation has been deemed in research either to be unclear or effective. What it's saying a lot is that if you're going to use it, it had better be a very defined slice, right? We're not hacking off limbs, we're doing surgery here. We ought to know, and there's some research to support that foundation. I think it's so important for a couple of reasons. Our justice system is an extraordinarily expensive endeavor, and public safety is priceless. We know better, we can do better. I strongly suggest that everybody in this room pull down that research and look at it. When you go to that website, there'll be like 8 papers. If that's the only one you read, you've read more today than you knew yesterday. But if you have time, pull down a couple and have this conversation. The study is a longitudinal study. It'll go on for an extraordinary long time. The federal government has supported it, so you get to see actually the products of these appropriated investments. And you can actually look at what is a study. It's a statistically significant study. Thousands of youth were covered, major jurisdictions across the state of Illinois, across the country, really looking at whether or not when serious offenders commit, how and when they desist, and what things contribute to that if we can know anything, right? Is it working? Is this response working? The juvenile justice system is effective for juveniles. In addition to raising the age of automatic transfer, though it's not specifically the subject of what's happening here, part of what we did in Illinois, which I think is so important and complementary in the dialogue, is we said that misdemeanors could not be committed to prison in Illinois. We had in one conversation this real dialogue about what the juvenile justice system was designed to do. If we are transferring juveniles to the adult system and we have kids in the juvenile system, who we serving in the juvenile system, right? Are we taking that position that a juvenile justice system is not designed to serve serious juvenile offenders? Then who are we putting there? It's a very expensive endeavor, right? $130,000 annually a head for me. That's not cheap. So we talked about that in the state because what we also know, another set of studies to look at, risk, needs, responsivity, right? A collection of research about how and when you supervise individuals, what impact it will have. And a lot of what that research has told us over time is that when you drive low-risk offenders into the system, you increase criminogenic risk and the likelihood of later recidivism. So when we should be using our resources on those moderate and high-risk offenders, supervising and imprisoning there to control and focus on public safety, but instead we mix in resources toward low risk, we don't support, we undercut public safety at high costs to us as a country. And so much of what we've been doing in Illinois is trying to have this really comprehensive dialogue about how we're using our system. I can't say enough. It's not because somebody's trying to be tough or soft on crime. It's because with the resources we have, we are trying to discuss what works. Everybody wants communities in Illinois. And we have so much conversation being from Chicago, though Illinois is not Chicago, about safety. We have to use those resources strategically. And we are in a place in this country based on research, based on the body of law to know that. When we talked about the Supreme Court precedent, really critically important precedent, focuses so much on a very small population of individuals that touch the justice system, right? Most kids, even those adult transferred, are not going to prison for life. So whatever we decide, we're making an investment that will ultimately send individuals back to our communities every day. We want to be making an investment that will work and support public safety. I live in a community, a regular high recidivist community on the south side of Chicago. I tell people all the time when I'm testifying, whether you know it or not, the person you're trying to protect is me. And I thank you so very much for it. But please, in as much as you're so passionate about my safety, please be passionate enough to sit and digest some of this information we have now, because we really can do a better job in protecting me and my little community on the south side of Chicago. And so I think in this work about juvenile justice, I just want everybody to be cognizant of that. It is a dangerous game when we are driving kids into the adult systems, those kids that will ultimately return to our communities, and making them victims of further crime and abuse. And then we assume that somehow they will come back to neighborhoods and small communities all over the country and be able to adapt and not commit another crime. Making the appropriate investments in how we respond to crime will keep us all safer in the long term. And I really think that's what we have to grapple with as a country. It's such an important conversation for us to be having, and really something that I'm so proud that's going on right now in Illinois. It's difficult work, because we both have to deal with what we've done, acknowledge that, digest all this new information, and then it is very difficult to restructure some of our investments to get back to where we need to be. But there's no question about it, we need to be there. We all just want to be safe at the end of the day. So, thank you.